So you want to know how to build a super duper top of the line next gen PC to play Roblox or amogus, or just to watch little Bingus in 4K? Well then, you clicked on the right video. Now, you might say, well, Bingus, I'm not Bob the Builder. I don't have all these fancy technical tools to build a fancy pants gaming computer. Plus, I don't know anything about computer science or computers at all. And to that I say, okay, because you don't need a soldering iron or a 24-in-1 toolkit to build a computer. Plus, you don't even need to know any special knowledge to build a computer. It's like Legos, but for people who don't like touching grass. Anyways, enough yapping, let's get building. Now, before we start, I want to show you what the first computer looked like. The first computer looked like this. Its name was the ENIAC, short for Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer, and it was big. No, it was huge. Unlike modern computers that can be controlled with just one Bingus, the ENIAC was controlled by people. More specifically, women. You know, those people that ignore you and say, "Ah, why are you chasing me?" in the middle of the night. Anyways, that was the first computer. Now let's look at modern computers. The first part we have in a computer is the Central Processing Unit, or CPU. The CPU is kind of small, usually around 2 inches by 2 inches, but the actual silicon chip inside is about the size of your thumb. It processes all the ones and zeros that are thrown in the computer. Its speed is measured in gigahertz, or billions of instructions per second. So yes, that means a 4.2 gigahertz processor will execute 4.2 billion instructions per second. By comparison, the ENIAC only had 100 kilohertz. Along with hertz, they are also measured with cores and threads. Cores can be seen as how many Binguses there are in a CPU, and the threads are how many tasks a single Bingus can accomplish. Also, a CPU cooler should go on your CPU, because those things can get very hot very quick, easily reaching 100 degrees Celsius quickly. Most people choose heat sinks that require a special little paste called thermal paste, which help transfer the heat from your CPU into your heat sink, where it is then dispersed and cooled by the help of an added fan. Other people have water coolers that use tubes and water and a radiator to disperse the heat instead of a heat sink. These little devices go directly on top of the motherboard on the CPU socket. And the motherboard looks like this. Yes, it is scary to look at and may confuse some people, but really it's simple. There are only a couple things that you should really look at. There is of course the CPU socket, where we place our CPU.
Look at this dude.
Then, right next to it, we have RAM slots. In a computer, there are two types of storage devices, RAM and hard drives. RAM, or random access memory, is the fastest, but also the most expensive, so you will usually find it in much smaller capacities. Whenever your CPU performs a task, it will be stored into RAM until it is needed. However, your RAM resets and deletes all the information it contains every time you turn off your computer. So you need to find somewhere else to save all the precious data you want to keep. That is where your hard drive kicks in to save the day. Although hard drives are kind of a thing of the past now, you will see SSDs more often.
Nerd terminology.
SSDs stands for solid state drives. Why that specific name? Because they are seen as more solid and non-volatile compared to a hard drive that disks and ejects moving parts. SSDs function without these moving parts and simply use flash memory and electricity to save data and therefore are more durable. So why are hard drives called hard drives? Is it because they're turned on? Get it? No, it's actually because they are sturdy compared to its predecessor, the floppy disk, which was, well, floppy. And it used magnets to write data. If you think this looks familiar, it's because it's the universal icon to save anything, whether it's a game file or a Bingus document. If you're wondering where the drive would go on the motherboard, the hard drive wouldn't go on the motherboard. The hard drive would just plug in right here using a SATA cable, but an SSD would go right here in the hidden slot. Older SSDs use the same boring SATA cable. Now, here's another thing not all computers have, but if you're watching this video, you're most likely going to want this in your setup. And that component is a GPU, or graphics processing unit. They also might be the most expensive because of all the technology they contain. And the graphics card is important for video games or other 3D rendering, because as the CPU handles some tasks, the GPU runs parallel with it, handling most of the video rendering and making the overall load much easier. It also carries its own VRAM, or video random access memory, and its own graphics processor, and heatsink and fan. It's almost like a mini PC. Almost. This fellow redditor gave a perfect explanation on how to view these two. The CPU is a nerd and the GPU is a jock. The CPU is good at math, English, chem, physics, yet the CPU is an average athlete. The GPU is average in academics, but can throw a ball far AF. In other words, the CPU is designed to handle a breadth of tasks at a steady pace, whereas the GPU is designed to do one task at a much faster rate. The CPU has several cores working on multiple different, more complicated tasks, and the GPU has exponentially more cores working on the same task. Basically, while the GPU can handle large tasks with ease, it doesn't have certain capabilities like handling an operating system or other general tasks a CPU can handle. One of the last components you need on your PC is a PSU, or power supply unit, but you can just call it a power supply and get away with it. This is important, not because it will give you extra performance, but because simply without it, you will get no performance. This is a part that will connect to the power outlet and then through the help of this cable, distribute the power throughout all the motherboard and its connected accessories. The final thing you want in your computer is an OS, or operating system. It is an essential software that your computer must have in order for the parts to communicate with each other using a freaky language of ones and zeros. Now, you have built a computer, but you can't just raw dog your system out in the wild like that. Well, you could, but then your computer would be vulnerable to dust and people and crumbs. Instead, what you want to do is get a case that will fit all your tech into one nice metal frame. This computer case will have certain features like an on and off switch and maybe a USB port, as well as fan mounts where you can place fans and make your PC as cold as the Arctic, but as loud as a jet engine. And now, you are cursed with the knowledge of knowing what a computer is, because a lot of technology we have around us is just a computer, whether you know it or not. Although some computers might remove certain components for practical design. Your phone is a huge example, or small example, because everything is specially designed to be compact and super light and portable. Almost all cars have computers, but most don't have a graphics card. Your Alexa? A computer. Even your gaming console is just a computer that is only designed to play video games. And now, you know how to build a PC, so you can finally subscribe to Bingus. Also, if you want to see me build a computer in Roblox, please hit the like button and comment Bingus rocks to let me know. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that video. Thank you for watching. This has been Bingus.